Chapter 7. The Moathouse. Latia started to come around. She looked up and saw a dog-like creature with glasses. There, it's okay. You'll be fine. Latia screamed. She then heard a female voice. Latia, it's okay. She looked to her left and saw the most beautiful creature she'd ever seen. This is my friend and trusted companion. He will take good care of you. Don't worry. And with that, she faded and was gone. Who was that? Who are you? It's okay. Everything's going to be fine. His voice got quieter, and everything started to fade. It's okay. Don't worry. Latia awoke. It was morning. She was in the tower. She saw the dead giant spider laying there on the floor near the entrance, and it creeped her out. Well, I just had a bizarre dream. Kinda wish it was real and this was the dream, she said, as she looked over at the spider again. She told everyone about her dream, wondering what it meant, if anything. Shinfia. So she was beautiful. What did she look like? Latia. Kinda like a wood elf, but not entirely. Maybe just part wood elf, or something. I'm not sure. Shinfia. A half wood elf? She started laughing. Yeah, like that'll ever happen. A wood elf mating with a non-wood elf? Please, it's more likely that Phil and I would have a kid. Phileas. Stop getting me excited, Shin, he said sarcastically. Shinfia. Oh, stop. You know what I mean. A gnome and a human will never mate, and neither will a wood elf and a non-wood elf. Interesting dream, though. A dog-like creature and a wood elf-like creature. Huh. Maybe you ate some of your herbs last night before you went to bed? Latia. Actually, I did. Thought it would help me sleep. Shinfia. Well, there you go. Herbs affect the mind. It gave you a most interesting dream. Maybe I'll try some tonight, she said with a smile. Luckily, nothing came into the tower while they slept, and when morning came, Lightmane was up walking around and eating. He still didn't look like himself, but he was clearly doing better. Latia. Wow, you look better. Do you think the shrine's blessing might have anything to do with it? Lightmane. Maybe, or maybe the slow poison spell and your herbs and honey mead helped, or maybe both. I'm still not 100%, but I'm well enough to travel, so let's go explore the Moathouse. Tenneth. I'm going with 1 slow poison, just in case we run into more spiders, and 2 cure light wound spells still. Hope nothing evil attacks us. Tenneth was referring to his protection from evil spell, which offered pretty good protection against such attacks. Lightmane scanned the grounds outside. It was like a big field, with bushes here and there, along the walls of the Moathouse, which a creature could be hiding in if it wanted to. I don't see any creatures outside. Shall we head to the steps? The party started heading towards the entrance. The Moathouse was quite large and quite in ruins. The entire upper portion had collapsed, but the main floor appeared to still be intact. Surely some creatures now were inside. On either side of the steps, 4 large arrow slits ran along the east wall and 3 on the north wall, with part of the west wall in rubble. The place clearly used to provide an excellent defense, allowing archers to fire arrows from behind the walls. The steps that went up to the partially broken double doors were over 20 feet wide. It once must have looked quite beautiful, but now it looked dead. Phileas. Wait, I hear something. I heard something. A sound came from within. Lightmane saw a man in one of the arrow slits holding a crossbow and aiming it at them. And then he saw 2 more. He called out to everyone just before they fired, causing everyone to duck, or put up a shield, or move to the side. One bolt caught Jack as he tried to hide behind his shield. grazing his leg. Lightmane cast Magic Missile at one, while Jack was still able to cast Magic Missile 2, aiming it at another. Both men cried out and moved back from the opening. More shots were fired, and someone fired from the entrance too. A bolt hit Latia in her side, and she screamed in pain. Nightwind charged up the steps, and everyone followed, wanting to get out of range from those behind the wall. Shinfia flew up the stairs and was right next to the dwarf when they ran inside. Immediately, two men with swords attacked. One had long, jet-black hair and wore splint mail armor. The other wore a helmet and scale mail armor, and they both held shields. Nightwind swung his axe at the man with the black hair, just as his sword came down on the dwarf. Both weapons cut into their victims, but Nightwind wasn't hurt as bad as his opponent was. The other man swung at Shinfia, who was able to dodge him, and upon seeing humans, she immediately dropped her staff and tried to drop-kick him. She caught him right in the chest, and he staggered backwards, but quickly regained his composure and came at her again, just as the rest of the party reached the top of the stairs. Meanwhile, inside, 6 other men now stood to either side of them, 3 on each side. They wore leather armor and held crossbows, but hesitated to shoot, not wishing to risk hitting their comrades, so they dropped their bows and drew forth their short swords and moved to engage. Shinfia cried for help, just as the others came inside. Jack called out, "It's time to go to sleep, boys," and started casting his spell. Shinfia, with a grin on her face, "Yes! Hit them, Jack! Hit them good!" The man with the jet-black hair cried out, "No! Wait! Stop! We surrender," he said as he backed away from Nightwind, but Nightwind swung his axe and hit him again. He went down screaming, but wasn't dead, just badly injured. "I surrender! Please don't kill us!" The spell went off, and everyone around Shinfia fell asleep, but Shinfia also fell asleep, leaving just Kent and 3 men who were near him. They all dropped their weapons and dropped to their knees, surrendering. Jack came over to Shinfia and woke her up. Jack, "Oops, sorry about that, Shin. I'm going to have to be more careful in the future with this spell. I forget that it's an area effect which can affect anyone." Shinfia, "That's okay. I needed a little nap anyway," she said, smiling. She picked up her staff, went over to the man in scale armor who wore a helmet, took it off, and hit him in the head, surely knocking him unconscious as he lay there asleep. The man with the jet-black hair cried out again, "Please, I beg you, have mercy. We will give you our treasure that we have hidden within here. We will serve you. We will do anything. Just please don't kill us." Tennant started tending to Latia's wound. "Latia, you surrender. Good. We have no desire to kill you. We're adventurers, not murderers. Who are you and why are you here? We were sent here from the village of Duran to explore this Moathouse and determine if it's salvageable. What's your story?" He was badly wounded, so after Tennant tended to Latia's wounds, she went over to him and attended to his. He seemed grateful. "Thank you. That is very kind of you. We are adventurers too, but none of us possess magical powers like you do. I'm sure we look like a bunch of thieves to you, and yes, we'll steal if it benefits us, but we desire what you desire, fame and fortune and all that glitters." Latia, "We do not desire fame, but adventure. Silver and gold, of course. They kind of come in handy in this world, don't they? But if you think we believe you're a party of adventurers, then you must really think we're a foolish bunch to fall for that nonsense. You're bandits, and this is your hideout." He looked a little nervous. We are not bandits. My name is Kent. I am a warrior, and Jim," looking at Shinfia, "the one you just clubbed in the head, is also a warrior and second in command. These others are just men in leather armor, for that is all they could afford. Hired hands, though we can't afford to pay them much, so we formed a party and went adventuring, and we're exploring this place. When we saw you, we panicked and fired on you, hoping you'd turn and flee. We offer our services. We will gladly work for food and whatever else you can spare us." Nightwind walked over to him, got down low and stared him in the face, while the others used their rope and tied up all who were sleeping, while removing all of their weapons and throwing them outside. Nightwind, Nice story. Now show us your treasure. Kent swallowed and looked a little nervous. Fine, but my wound is bad. I need rest. Nightwind put his axe in Kent's face. Show us your treasure, or would you rather see my blade in your skull? Lightmane. Nightwind, relax. They're all unarmed, and half are tied up. Let's try a more civil approach, shall we? Nightwind rolled his eyes. Fine. He's all yours, elf. Lightmane. Thanks, dwarf, he said somewhat sarcastically with a smile while looking at Kent. We're usually on a first-name basis, but he's a little grumpy right now. If our cleric here heals some of your wounds with his magic, will you then show us where you've hid your treasure? Kent looked down and unhappy. Yes, I guess we have no choice. Lightmane. Good. See, now that wasn't so hard, was it? As he looked at Nightwind and smiled. Nightwind just rolled his eyes again. The others awoke, and seeing the predicament they were now in, sat quietly with the other three and said nothing. Jim still laid there unconscious. Shinfia sat next to him. Belfin and Phileas walked over to the six. Belfin. My name is Belfin. This is Phileas. Tom. I'm Tom. This is Bill, John, Fred, Darian, and Paul. Belfin. You're rogues, right? Tom, looking nervous. No, we're just men. We are not skilled in things like that. We used to work on a farm, but chose to go adventuring instead. We're just normal guys, hoping for a break in life. Kent is telling you the truth. They're warriors, and we're hired help. You know, hirelings, henchmen, that's it. Better to go adventuring, I say. Phileas. Then you're all a bunch of fools. Tom. We're fools? Wait, you're adventurers too. Why then do you call us fools? Phileas. The six of you thought it was a good idea to go adventuring with just 2 warriors? Do you see the big, nasty giant spider over there? Tom. What? Giant spider? Where? Phileas. In the tower. Phileas walked over to the doors and pointed. Tom. We didn't go in there. We just went inside for shelter and started exploring. Phileas. Well, you're fools then, because you went adventuring with no one with magical powers. No cleric, no wizard, no nothing. Just 6 guys and 2 warriors. That's basically suicide. If there were 12 of you, I'd still call you somewhat stupid. But 6? No. I'm shocked you're all still alive. Tom. We're very resourceful. We know what we're doing. Phileas. Okay, I've heard enough. Show us these treasures of yours. Let's see what you've got. Tom. So you're going to steal our treasure? Phileas said nothing. Belfin. If you earn our trust, maybe we can work something out. But right now, it's not looking like you're very trustworthy. The room they were in was huge, 50 feet square, with hallways going south and west. There were tattered banners and tapestries on the walls, destroyed furniture and heaps of rotting cloth, all piled in the southeast corner. In the center was a very large table and 8 chairs. They all looked like they were once very high quality, but now were in poor condition, yet still intact. Plates and silverware, goblets, and a pitcher that looked like they were once quite valuable were on the table, along with some dice, playing cards, copper coins, and some silver coins. Latia, looking at the table and back at them. So you were just exploring this place, and there just happened to be a table with 8 chairs with food and drink. They said nothing. There was also a door in the northeast corner. What was once no doubt a great entrance hall was now a room full of mostly broken furniture and garbage. In the ceiling they saw pieces of beams and chunks of stone that poked through, showing clearly that the upper level was totally destroyed. In the south wall was a stairway going up, but dust and debris was everywhere on the stairs, and on the landing halfway up there was rubble everywhere, completely blocking their way. They could hear lots of movement above. Kent, there's nothing up there but rats. No clue how many. It's all destroyed up there. We were able to fix this table well enough to be able to sit here and eat and drink. Latia, and gamble. Kent, yes, and gamble. Do you play dice or cards? Latia, Not for money, just for fun. Kent found that statement confusing. Nightwind, enough, he said, looking at Kent. Show us your treasure. Kent, looking frustrated. Fine. Outside of the rats above, there's mostly just garbage and broken furniture throughout this place, though we found a few items in the rooms. We keep them through the door here in a wooden chest, which we hid in the rubble where part of the wall collapsed. I believe this room was used by whoever was in charge here. Kent slowly led them over to the door in the northeast corner. It was battered and broken in spots, but still intact. It was a large room, almost 30 by 30 square, and it had a ton of garbage piled up in the southeast corner and a fireplace on the north wall. The floor was black flagstone. There were ebon-colored wall hangings everywhere, but they were burnt and tattered. A beat-up, but still usable large bed was in the southwest corner. Kent, this is where I sleep. The chest is hidden in the rubble over there. Nightwind, so dig it out. Two of his men moved the rubble aside and brought the wooden chest over. Nightwind, open it. Kent, you think we've trapped it? Why would we do that? Nightwind, well, if it's not trapped, then open it. Kent, frustrated now, looked at his men and they opened it. Inside were 2 bolts of fine cloth, a crystal flagon and 4 goblets, and an inlaid wooden box with ivory handles and decorations. Nightwind, nice, but this is all there is? This is all the treasure in this place? Kent, this is all we've found. We searched everywhere. We think there's a giant snake that's made a lair outside in the wreckage in the room at the southern end. Jack, giant snakes now? Oh, great. What's next? Wait, don't answer that. I don't want to know. Kent continued, as though Jack hadn't even spoke. It once was a great dining hall. That's where we found the table and chairs, but in the wreckage outside is where we saw the creature. Pretty sure it's a snake, or lizard maybe. It's a giant something, that's for sure. We feared it might be able to come in through the rubble, so after a search of the room, we decided to bring the table and chairs here, and then we closed the door and boarded it up. Lightmane, is there a lower level? Kent, if there is, we haven't found it. No stairways going down anywhere that we know of. The party decided to search the place with Kent and his men. Once Jim regained consciousness, they untied everyone and had them all take off their armor and whatever weapons they still had, and told them how this was going to go. Latia, okay, you're all going to show us around, and depending on how cooperative and helpful you are, will determine what we do with you afterwards. Kent looked at them with disdain. You all take orders from a woman? Latia, okay, why am I not surprised? Are you kidding me right now? Kent immediately switched gears. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant no disrespect. I was just surprised to see a woman as the leader. Latia, shaking her head. I'm not the leader. We have no leader. We're friends, companions, allies. We are a party. Everyone is equal among us. Again, Kent looked confused by Latia's words, but tried to act like he wasn't. Oh, well, of course. Why have it any other way? Latia walked right up to him and looked him dead in the eyes. You're not fooling any of us with this good guy act. You're the leader of your bandit gang, and Jim here is second in command, and now you're going to show us each room, and if you try anything, you'll regret it. Let's go. Kent said nothing and led the way. There were 3 rooms down the south passage, with what once was a large, extravagant dining room at the end. The 3 rooms each had a bedroll or 2 that belonged to them. 1 or 2 of them slept in each room. The party searched each room thoroughly. In one room they found a very fine-looking broadsword that was sitting in a beat-up wall case behind a ton of junk. Lightmane strapped it to his belt. Kent looked surprised when they found it, as did the others. In the other room they would have found nothing, but Belfin had a moment of good fortune and luck and found a secret compartment underneath a table. In it were 4 platinum coins and a jeweled dagger. Belfin, look what I found, boys and girls. Now we're talking. Let's go check out the dining room. Jack, huh? Do the words giant snake mean anything to you? Belfin, They said it's outside. It probably prefers being outside in the moist air and muck of the moat and swamps. Doubt it comes inside much, if at all. They were just about to open the door when they smelled a foul odor coming from within. Kent: Oh, we forgot to tell you. There's a couple dead bodies in there. It wasn't us. They're long dead, and the smell is really bad. Jack: Dead bodies now. Oh, joy. Hey, maybe the giant snake doesn't like the smell of dead bodies. Phileas: Or maybe he does, and that's why he hangs around. Phil's words sent a shiver up Jack's spine. They opened the door. The dining room was very large, 40 by 20 feet. The two dead bodies were about 20 feet from the door and were rotting and were mostly eaten. Rats and bugs were everywhere. They could tell it was a man and a woman, but that's all they could tell. They closed the door and barred it back up. Latia: Okay, that was gross. Well, at least they weren't undead that rise up and attack us. Kent: Undead? Undead are real? Latia: While none of us have ever seen any undead, I doubt all the stories are just stories. That's another reason you should not go adventuring without a cleric. It's not just that they can help heal your wounds, they can also turn undead creatures. Of course, evil clerics can control undead, I hear. Good thing our Teneth here is a good cleric and not an evil one. Just imagine if he was evil, Latia said, looking at Kent with a sly smile. Kent looked somewhat confused. Teneth: And with Alana's blessing, may I never be turned into an evil one. Oh, and the shrine's blessing, too. Kent: Shrine? Latia: It's a place we found. Maybe we'll show it to you one day. Let's check out the west section now. The west passage had 3 rooms and a small storeroom, ending with another large dining hall. The small storeroom was a mess. Garbage and broken containers and glass were everywhere, but when they searched through it, they found on one of the upper shelves a jug containing 10 flasks of oil. Phileas: Nice! We could use these, or maybe even sell them. Lightmane: We'll see. Pack them up for now. Kent: Will we be getting any of this treasure? I mean, since we're helping you. Shinfia: Helping us? Is that what you call this? You attacked us. We've spared your lives up till now. Asking for treasure from those you tried to kill is not a good idea. Lightmane: Guys, there's something here. I think it's a secret door. Kent, looking very surprised. What? Lightmane: Pretty sure. Belle and Phil, come help me. No clue how to open it, assuming I'm right, that is. Phileas found a hidden mechanism in the wall and was able to trigger it, which caused the door to slide open, revealing stairs going down. Lightmane: Yes. But let's search the rest of the place before going down there, as he slid the door closed. Everyone agreed and moved on to the 3 side rooms. One was a trophy room. Along with the bedrolls, there were some mangy pelts on the floor and some stuffed heads of deers with their shattered antlers lying on the floor, with all the broken items piled up against the northeast corner. The men explained that they were the ones who pushed everything into corners, trying to make room for themselves since they were going to sleep here. This the party understood, but when they found nothing of value, they headed to the next room, which they also found nothing of value. But the last room was the kitchen, and while it wasn't in very good shape anymore, it was clearly being used. A wooden barrel sat near a fireplace on the north wall. An empty wheelbarrow sat in front of some junk and broken items that were up against the southeast corner. The shelves were still intact, and there were lots of sacks and jars containing foodstuffs, iron rations, along with cheese, vegetables, salted meat, and maybe a dozen loaves of bread and several jugs of water. Latia: You've been shopping. Where? Kent was looking nervous. Oh, well, there's a village less than half a day's travel west of here. We decided we should stock up. We were hoping we could live here for a while. That was the plan, anyway. Latia: I see. Well then, you say the room on the end is another dining room? Let's check it out. No dead bodies, right? Jack: Hey, this barrel has wine in it, but it's only half full. It's excellent. I bet this cost you some coins. Maybe there's more below. Kent, looking more nervous. It wasn't that expensive. And no, there's no more dead bodies. There's another table, and sometimes we eat in there, but there's a ton of rubble from another collapsed wall. So far, though, nothing has come inside. The dining room was just as Kent described it. Tons of broken furniture and items were all over the place. The table was partly broken, but still standing, but all the chairs here were broken. The wall in the southwest corner was mostly collapsed, and rubble filled the room there. A search found nothing, but Belfin thought he saw something deep under the rubble, so they started slowly lifting and moving stuff aside. Just as a large wooden chest came into view, a giant lizard came out of nowhere from underneath the rubble and attacked. Belfin leaped out of the way, just avoiding its jaws that snapped down hard. Everyone backed away in horror, and panic set in. But then they quickly regained their composure, drew their weapons, and moved to attack. But the men started screaming, since they had no armor or weapons, and some of them went running back east. Were they running away or to get weapons? No one knew, but right now a giant lizard was their immediate problem. Lightmane and Shinfia attacked it with their weapons on either side of it, while Latia and Nightwind faced it head-on, while Phileas and Belfin looked to see if there was a way they could get behind it, but there wasn't. Jack held his short sword and wooden shield, not sure what to do, since he only had minor cantrip spells left in his memory. The rubble was everywhere. Only Latia's sword hit it for damage. The lizard lunged at Latia and bit her. She screamed, but fortunately it only caught her slightly. But blood started pouring. Tenneth immediately started casting his Cure Light Wound spell on her. The lizard lashed out at Latia again, and this time he got her good, just as Nightwind, Lightmane, and Shinfia's weapons came down hard. Shinfia's staff crushed its head, while Nightwind's axe cut deep into its body. The lizard's life came to an end immediately, with Latia lying unconscious in its mouth. Or was she dead? They didn't know. Blood was pouring out of her, and immediately Tenneth cast another Cure Light Wounds. The wounds healed up somewhat, but Latia still looked lifeless, as they pulled her from the giant lizard's mouth and laid her on the floor. Tenneth, come on, Latia, breathe! Breathe, damn it! Grab her herbs! Tenneth had healing salve that he used when treating wounds. He applied it as best he could, while Lightmane handed him some of her herbs, along with a wineskin that was filled with honeymead. Everyone sat around her, hoping, praying, as blood continued to come out of her body now, but much slower thanks to Tenneth's spells and treatments. Her heart was beating, but for all they knew, she was dying, and there might be nothing they could do. Tenneth, she's still alive. Come on! I don't know what else to do. Just then, the life appeared to go out of her. Tenneth listened for a heartbeat, but there was nothing. Tears started coming down his face, and then everyone else's. Tenneth crying out, "She's dead! Oh my God, she's dead!" Shinfia, "No! Please, no!" Shinfia cried out in pain, and got up and smashed her staff against the table, breaking the table in two. She then ran back and tried pouring a little water on Latia's lips and into her mouth. Then she just sat there and cried out some more. They all just sat there in silence. And then, a moment later, everyone was shocked. Latia's voice whispered, Shy. Shinfia, she's alive! What did she say? Did you hear what she said? Lightmane, no clue. Sounded like she was struggling to speak. Oh my God, look at her wound. It's almost completely healed. Latia, can you hear me? Latia's eyes slightly opened. Faye? She barely spoke again, and then her eyes closed again. Tenneth checked her vital signs again. She's alive. I guess she didn't die. I don't know. She's alive, though, and she seems somewhat stable. We can't move her, though. We have to stay here and hope nothing else comes in from outside, through that rubble. Where did Kent and his men go? Lightmane, well, if you were them, where would you go? Tenneth, so you're saying they fled? Lightmane, that's what I'd probably do if I were them. Of course, I'd grab as much of my stuff as I could first. Tenneth, great. Just great. The party set up a watch, both at the door and by the rubble which led outside through the broken wall. Lightmane and Jack would rememorize their spells after resting, while Tenneth sat with Latia, making sure her heart kept beating. Shinfia, let me do that. You need to rest and get your spells back. Belfin and Phileas kept watch by the rubble, while Nightwind sat up against the door. They wanted to go after Kent and his men, but they were exhausted. Nightwind wanted to go after them, but Lightmane told him not to. Lightmane, let them go. We can't risk losing you. We almost lost Latia today. They know they're no match for all of us. They're probably long gone by now anyway, so just forget about them and rest. Nightwind sighed, sat down, and closed his eyes. Bale. Hey, where are you? Sheila. Outside in the field, practicing. Bale. Practicing? Practicing what? Sheila. Archery. Come watch. Bale. I like how you can hear me and talk to me like you're standing next to me while I have no clue where you are. Sheila. I know. It's cool, isn't it? Bale. For you, I'm sure it is. Bale went out back. Sheila had a very large and incredible-looking bow that was greenish and brownish colored with yellowish streaks that ran all through it. It floated in the air next to her and was firing large arrows every couple of seconds at a target that was over 100 feet away. The target was also floating and moving side to side, as well as up and down, but every time the bow fired, it hit the target. Sheila was also firing arrows from her short bow that looked very similar to the bow that was floating. The target kept getting hit by 2 arrows at a time until it was full of arrows, at which point she stopped and looked back at Bale, smiling. Sheila. Good morning, Bale. How are you doing this lovely morning, my wonderful floppy-eared friend? Bale, slightly annoyed at Sheila's persistence in continuing to refer to him as her floppy-eared friend, just stared at her for a moment and rolled his eyes, as usual. Bale. Show off. Sheila just smiled and said nothing. Bale. What kind of bow is that? Sheila. Why, it's my earth bow. It's my spell I created for druids. Bale. It's a druid spell? That fires a bow? Druids don't fire bows. Rangers fire bows. Archers fire bows. Heck, even rogues fire bows. But not druids. Druids are nature priests. I'm confused. Sheila. It's an earth bow. Get it? Earth? It's from the earth. I created the spell with nature magic, which allows a druid to fire an arrow just like a ranger or archer can. Of course, my earth bow is much more powerful than the typical druid spell. Bale. It is? Shocking, he said sarcastically. Sheila then had the bow turned straight up, and it started firing arrows straight into the sky, moving ever so slightly in a tiny circular pattern as it fired. She then moved next to the bow and fired her bow in the same pattern, then turned to Bale and just stood there smiling. Bale. What in the world are you doing? Trying to kill yourself? The arrows came down one at a time in a circular pattern all around her, each of them landing no more than 5 feet from her. Bale closed his eyes and looked away at first, but then looked back. Sheila stood in the middle of a circle of arrows. Sheila. No, I'm not trying to kill myself, you silly boy. I'm showing off. He could not believe what he just saw. She had impressed him many times in many ways that left him dumbfounded. But this one had him scratching his head for days.